Where is that mask?
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
What the hell is going on?
Our plan is proceeding as expected.
Oh, really? Do I look like I'm running Wayne Enterprises right now? Your hit on the stock exchange, it didn't work, my friend. And now you have my construction crews going around the city at 24 hours a day. How exactly is that supposed to help my company absorb Wayne's?
Leave us.
No, you stay here. I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the two hosts of this elegant podcast.
And I'm Rich and I'm the other host of this elegant podcast. Think of me as the ring to Dave's Gollum. He's a strange little fellow and I'm precious.
Ouch. Good truth. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, their worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we quite often drift off and talk about other things, mostly movie related, but sometimes just life in general.
And of course, sometimes we do like to drop big fat spoilers to films you may or may not have seen. But if that happens, just flick ahead. It'll all be all right. And if not, just go out there, check on your pets. They need a good feeding. Good pat down? Is that what you do to pets? Not quite sure.
I can tell you haven't got any pets, Dave.
No, because on today's episode, we are joined by Chris Killian.
Chris is a brilliant presenter and interviewer. You'll find him on comicbook.com, where he interviews lots of stars and often talks about upcoming sequels, getting the gossip about what's coming.
Yes, because we are excited to sit down with Chris and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Chris Killian's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy!
Do you remember the first sequel you got excited about?
Oh, for sure. And it's still, to this day, one of my favorite sequels. In fact, I'm going to see it tonight in the theater, and I'm so excited. I'm driving an hour and a half to go watch it, but it's Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Wow.
First sequel that I ever got really excited about. I remember I wasn't even, I think it was just the trailers, like complete. I was like 7, and I shouldn't have been watching Terminator at all. I hadn't seen the first one, but the trailer for the second one, I just was obsessed with it. And I finally convinced my mom to let me watch the first one to get ready for it. And so I remember watching it, and then it was like, and when it came out, we had a video store that they would only get. I lived in a small town, so like when a new movie would come out, like you basically have to get put on a waiting list to get the VHS because it would come out for rental before you could actually buy it in the store.
Yeah.
So I remember like. It was a big night. I still remember being so excited all day long because it was the day that I knew we were going to get to rent Terminator 2 and watch it. And I had no business watching it at that age, but I did, and I loved it. And I think it fully, I think it had a lot to do with the man I've become today.
I think a lot of people watched it far too young, right? Yeah. Like everyone watched Terminator 2 way too young. I think about 8, when I watched it, 8 or 9, something like that.
And it's such a perfect sequel. I mean, it is everything you could want a sequel to be. I mean, it's one of those rare instances. I mean, it builds on the first one, but it just completely takes over, and it still holds up so well. James Cameron specifically, and also Steven Spielberg, I think to a lesser degree, they're just such masters of how to utilize that old CGI and mix it with practical effects, so it holds up. It's incredible. I mean, it's just such a good movie.
Yeah. How long was your wait for the VHS? How long?
I don't remember. I know that it was probably at least a couple days, couple weeks maybe, but I don't know. But I know that we knew what date we were going to get it. And I remember that day. I mean, and I had a very Christian babysitter, and so I remember my babysitter. I was at her house that day, and I was like, "We're gonna watch Terminator 2 tonight," and she was not happy. Did not support it at all. But I didn't care.
I think I had the exact opposite of a babysitter because I'm pretty sure I watched Terminator 2 with a babysitter who's probably like a 15-year-old kid who's like just like, yeah, it's on it. Watch whatever you want.
No, my babysitter at the time had like two kids that were like just a little younger than me. So she was older. She wasn't like, she was probably older than my mom, to be honest. So, so yeah, I remember she just had this like scowl on her face every time I brought up the fact that I was going to watch Terminator 2. And I just didn't understand why she wasn't more excited for me.
Or do I? I guess that she never watched the first one. When your mum watched the first one and thought it was appropriate to rent the second one, did she know what you were going into? Like,
yeah, I think so. I've been told that Terminator was actually technically the first movie that I ever saw. I don't remember it. I was a baby, and they went to the drive-in to watch the first Terminator. So she was well aware of what Terminator was. And actually, I watched the first Terminator. I watched Terminator and RoboCop 2. I remember we rented it the same night, but I was actually with my grandpa who let me watch it. And so I did not watch the first Terminator with my mom. It was my grandpa. My grandpa made me cover my eyes in the old sex scene, which so that was I remember that. I remember being like, oh, I think I saw a nipple. I got to close my eyes now. And
I love he made you close your eyes for a nipple, but not the nuclear war bit. You know,
no,
it's fine.
Or the police, like
no, that was fine. And I remember RoboCop 2 having the most atrocious language. Like I remember, I was like, oh man, so many words I was not allowed to say. I mean, I would have just got hit across the face if I'd repeated anything that I heard in RoboCop 2.
Yeah, you mentioned there that you went to a drive-through. Sadly, in England, we don't really have them.
Not a thing.
They're not a thing.
Oh, really? They don't have drive-ins?
Once in a while they put them
the
up.
weather's too bad. Basically,
it rains.
They've sort of gone out of style even here in America, which is too bad because they're a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but there are like one or two in driving distance that you can still go to here. So, and they'll usually do like double headers, right? It's like a 2-movie thing. So you just pay to go in, and it starts at dusk. As soon as the sun starts going down, they play the first one, and then they have like a little 15-minute intermission, and then they start the second one. It's great.
I would love that.
Sounds so good.
Sorry to be an idiot, but how does the sound get into the car?
It's usually radio, right?
Right.
So you tune into a radio station that's playing the audio of the movie.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. I presumed that's what it'd be.
I thought it was like a little box that.
Now some of them do, right? But I think that over the years, I think it's been easier for them to just jump on like an AM radio station and they play the audio that way.
Yeah,
which would be kind of cool if you were if you were somebody who just like listening to movies and you lived next to a drive-in, you could just kind of tune in every weekend. Just be like, what movie am I listening to today?
Yeah. Also, you said earlier that you are about to drive like 1.5 hours to watch Terminator 2 tonight.
Yeah.
Why? Where? What makes you do that? Just that's dedication.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I've seen it in theaters. I took my son to watch it when I think it was when was it? This is 3 or 4 years ago. They had a re-release in theaters for like a couple of days, and I took my son to go watch it. And I mean, it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to watch old movies, especially old movies that you missed in the theaters. Like to go back and get a chance to watch them. There's just something different about watching it on the big screen, even when you've seen it. It's so much fun. I remember one time I got to go see Bloodsport. I watched Bloodsport in a packed theater with everybody else who loves Jean-Claude Van Damme as much as I do, and it was the coolest thing ever. I had so much fun. There's nothing to be said about. I like that theaters are starting to get into this habit of like re-releasing movies and showing old movies in theaters, because there's something to be said about going and watching it, on the big screen.
Bloodsport is another one that I watched with that irresponsible babysitter when I was like 8 years old.
What a great movie.
Great babysitter.
Bloodsport gave us Street Fighter and so many great Mortal Kombat. So many great things were inspired by Bloodsport. What a classic.
I do get Bloodsport and Kickboxer a little bit muddled up, to be honest.
That's okay. I am more of a Bloodsport guy between the two, but I like both of them. I mean, Jean-Claude's got his little dance that he does in Kickboxer that, is just pretty amazing.
Yeah. I can see behind you got a Return of the Jedi poster.
Oh yeah.
Did you go and see the re-release that when they played that on a big screen recently?
Oh, of course. I like it the most. People get mad at me for that because I like it more than Empire. But
you're in good company.
You're correct, Chris.
It's just I just like the closure. I love the happy ending. It feels, I mean, you get Darth, turning good, and it's just, there's so much good stuff about it that I just think it's a more fun movie than Empire. I love Empire. It's not to say I don't love Empire. I love Empire, but it feels like a piece of the story, right? It's like the middle, and then you get the end, and it's very rare that I think, like, there's a lot of instances, I think, where the middle parts of a trilogy are the best, and because you build it up so well that it can never really, you don't get the proper closure, like they just don't stick the landing as well. But Return of the Jedi does, so I think it's for me it's a better movie because of that.
You're totally correct. Have you been put off by all the George Lucas touch-ups, or is the original your favorite cut, or do you not mind Anakin as Hayden?
No, I would prefer the original cuts. I think I don't like going back and touching up things. Like, I understand going up and touching up like if there's like just little mess ups or something, like if you spot something after the fact that like for example, and it's not a movie, but like when Game of Thrones had the Starbucks cup,
yes.
on the table, you want to go back and cut that out. Like, I support that. That's fine. I totally understand you wanting to do that, but just going back and messing with certain things, like some of the things that George Lucas has added into these movies is like so corny, and they don't hold up at all. I mean, Anakin is one thing like that doesn't bother me as much though. But it's weird because, like, why isn't everybody else young? Why is Anakin now the only young Force
That's what I said.
Yeah.
So it's like, no.
It doesn't make any sense. The only thing I can think about touching up now is this whole de-aging process. Like, I would like them to go back and touch up Rogue One, because we had Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny recently, and it's getting there, but it's not perfect. I would totally allow them to, in a few years.
Have you seen Dial of Destiny yet?
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I still have not seen it. I just haven't had time. I'm hoping to go. I'm actually going on vacation this weekend. We're going down to Orlando, and I'm gonna go try to watch it while I'm down there. So
no spoilers from us then.
No spoilers. All I'll say is,
what a couple of gentlemen.
I loved it.
I really enjoyed it.
I loved it.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I was so happy coming out. I really enjoyed it.
I've heard mixed things, but I have a couple of buddies who love Indy as much as I do, and they've been very like, it's so good. Like, I don't understand why anybody who loves Indiana Jones should love this movie. So that's all I need. So I'm probably going to love it as well.
So yeah, when I was 5, I wanted to be Indiana Jones more than anything in the world. And my dad had to pull me aside and say, that's not what an archaeologist does. You don't get a whip, you get a little brush. Like ruin my dreams.
Yeah, like watch the first I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes of Jurassic Park, and that's a little bit more.
That's more like it.
That's more like it.
What an archaeologist does.
Yeah, just
sweeping off dino bones.
What is your favorite sequel ever?
I think we've sort of answered this, right? I think that it's Terminator 2, I think, is just a perfect action movie. I still think that, like, to this day, I mean, it does everything that a sequel should do. As far as, like I said, it builds on the first one, and the twist is just the like making Arnold the bad guy in the first one, and the way that they twist him to be the good guy in the new one, but then also like the bad guy is a police officer. I mean, just the whole. The way they play with the roles there is just it's fantastic. I think it was ruined by the marketing, but I think that the intention, I think James Cameron really intended for you not to know that Arnold was the good guy at first. I mean, you could see the way the story is built that you can't tell. You kind of think that the cop, the guy that ends up, T-1000 is the one that's going to be the good guy, and then it spins, and you realize that Arnold's actually the hero in this. It's just masterful. But if I was to not go with Terminator 2, I would say The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is just, I mean, that is also just what a great sequel. I mean, so good. I love The Dark Knight so much, but that's sort of like when we were talking earlier about how the third don't stick the landing.
Yeah.
Like The Dark Knight, I love it. I mean, and it's one of those movies like Shawshank Redemption that anytime it's on, I'll just sit down and I'll watch it because I mean Heath is just so mesmerizing in that movie. But Dark Knight Rises makes me so sad because I know that's not what they had planned. Like they had a whole other script plan that like Joker, was a big part of. And so that after Heath's death, the fact that they had to drop it and do something else entirely from scratch makes me just sad because I want to know. I want to know what the plan was for that original third one, and I bet it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
I think, we've got that question coming.
So let's talk about Dark Knight and Batman Begins. So were you a big fan of Batman Begins? Are you a big Batman? Well, I can see from the back, you're behind. Yeah, you're a massive Batman fan. I'm
a massive Batman fan. Batman is the first movie that I recall seeing in theaters. It was Batman in 1989. It was a doubleheader. It was I saw Ghostbusters 2 first, and then so Ghostbusters 2 was technically the first movie that I remember seeing. But my biggest memory from that night is that we had a small the closest theater to the small town I grew up in was like 45 minutes away. So me and my mom and dad went to the theater, and we had this doubleheader. It was Ghostbusters 2 and then Batman. But then the lights came up after the credits rolled on Ghostbusters 2, and the ushers going around like checking the tickets and making sure that like the people that have tickets for Batman can stay and watch Batman. And my dad is like being like, "Oh no, like I don't have the tickets. We've lost the tickets." And I'm like a 5-year-old just freaking out. I'm like, "We are here to see Batman. What are you talking about? You don't have the tickets." And he was just messing with me. But I remember like my dad really stressing me out about the fact that the usher's going to find out we don't have the tickets for Batman and they're going to kick us out and we're not going to get to see it. But yeah, so me and Batman, we go way back. But yes, I love Batman Begins. I saw Batman Begins in IMAX in Nashville. I was with my brothers and my mom, and then for Dark Knight, I remember I was actually I was going to Florida for vacation when it came out. And I missed the midnight showing. Like I missed getting tickets for it. So I ended up getting tickets to like a 3 a.m. showing. So
you're one of those people.
Yeah. I'm definitely not so much anymore. But I used to be one of those people for sure who would like go as late. And I've worked at a movie theater as well, right? I was a projectionist for a little while. And so I really grew to hate midnight showings. I was like, God dang, they're like King Kong's out now. I'll be here till 4 a.m. It's but yeah, no, it's I did see Batman Begins and I did see Dark Knight, and I love both of those movies. I think they're both fantastic, but I think Dark Knight is a better movie.
Yeah. Did you buy into the whole build up? Like, I know when they first announced Heath Ledger was going to be Joker, everyone lost their minds, and not in a good way.
I was so mad.
Really?
Yeah, because at the time, there was rumors, I remember, and this was before I was ever working with comicbook.com, so I was purely just a fan.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, everybody was sort of, like, wanting Johnny Depp. I remember, like, that seems to be the name that in my memory, like, sticks out as we thought it was going to be, like, we're going to get someone like Johnny Depp or whatever. And then when it was Heath Ledger, I remember just being like, the cowboy guy? Like, that? Like, what? And I have never questioned a fan casting ever since then. Yeah, because I remember when the teaser came out, and it's the bat symbol with the blue fire like blowing behind it, and we don't see any footage. We only hear Heath's voice and then the laugh afterwards.
Yeah, his whole performance in that film is just only once in a while does a performance come across like that. I can't remember something like it.
It's incredible. I mean, I think it's so easy to lose touch of how great it is because it's been mimicked so much now. Like, you see episodes of The Office where they're dressing up like Heath Ledger's Joker, and we've seen it ripped off in various forms. So, but to be there, like, and watch this performance, like when it came out, and especially with the sort of the added mystique on of like he passed away, and this is one of his final great performances.
Yeah.
I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it was incredible to watch in real time.
It really was. What's your favorite scene from it?
Oh, man.
Try and do that. That's a hard question.
Dude, I think I literally think that every time Heath Ledger's on camera, it's just like he steals the whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But probably when he shows up with the table of the gangsters, is probably my favorite scene, when he really makes his entrance, and the pencil trick and all of that stuff combined, and just how he just sort of owns those guys. Like, these are the most dangerous men in Gotham, and he just is like, he's just playing with them. And I mean, it really encapsulates who the character is. I think probably with a close second being the Batman Joker interrogation scene. I mean, that's
a good one.
Yeah, that's classic. So both of those scenes are probably the ones that I would pick. That I would say that, I mean, sometimes I'll go on YouTube and I'll just watch those scenes, you know.
Yeah. How do you feel about Christian Bale in this film? How do you feel him as a Batman? Because he kind of gets sidelined in his own movie.
Yeah, I mean, but that sort of happens with Batman in general, right? Batman is the straight man to the villains. He always has been. Yeah. It's always been an issue. I think it's very hard for Batman to be I mean, you even see it like now with Robert Pattinson, like Colin Farrell steals that movie. It's always been a situation where the villains sort of take the lead. And, but I think Christian Bale was a great Batman. The voice is a little hokey. I don't think the voice ages super well. But I think that it's only because it's been parodied so much since then.
Yeah, that's true. It's the parody since, isn't it, that have kind of made it kind of
a little. Well, the same thing happens to Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that when you put it in the context, like frame it in that context of like when it came out, I think that it was awesome. It was awesome.
Mm. Have you showed your children the Dark
Knight? Well, I only have one child, but yes.
Have you showed your child?
Of course.
At what age do you go for it? Like, is 5 too early?
No, I was showing him everything that I thought.
You're like Rich.
I was like,
yeah, it's like me.
I mean, it's weird, right? Because the violent stuff really it didn't affect me. I would not show him. I wouldn't show my kids sexual stuff. Like if it was sexualized movies, I wouldn't. You know, we would stay away from that. But like when it came to like anything comic book related, I would show him. Like we were watching all that stuff before he could speak.
I get told off by my wife for letting him watch inappropriate stuff. So she comes home and he's like, "Daddy, let me watch the Venom movie. It's my favorite." And I'm like, "Oh God, don't tell her."
Well, at least that's PG-13. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's fine.
I remember like I think I traumatized my kid accidentally by letting him watch Child's Play too early. But which was sort of a rite of passage because I was traumatized by watching Child's Play because I remember. My grandma showed me Child's Play, which is the funniest thing. Like my grandma was like, you know, she wouldn't even say fart. She would like make me say like break wind. Like she's the most uptight person that I know, but she would let me watch the worst horror movies. I never understood, you know, the rationale behind this, but she showed me Child's Play when I was really young. And I remember being so scared that I was hiding behind the couch, like sort of half watching it because I'm so terrified of this movie. And so when I was trying to tiptoe my son into horror movies, we're watching like the old black and white Universal monster movies, right? We're watching like Frankenstein and the Wolfman and things like that. And so I have like this huge collection of like DVDs and Blu-rays. And for some reason, Child's Play it was one of those movies that he was just he was obsessed with it. He's always, every time I'd be like, go pick out a movie, let's go watch a movie, he would bring me Child's Play and I'd be like, no, we're not watching Child's Play. Like put it up. Like you're not old enough yet. And this went on for months where he would like bring me Child's Play and he wants to watch that. And so we're watching I don't remember what we watched, but we were watching one of the more tame horror movies and he just gets so mad at the end of it. He's like, nothing scares me. And he starts like goading. He's like, no movies scare me. He's like, and I'm like, and he keeps like trying to bring me Child's Play, and I'm like, no, like that's too much. But he just reverse psychology, like he uses reverse psychology on me. He's like 5, and he's like, none of these crappy movies you're showing me are scary. And I'm like, fine, we'll watch this one. And so we put on Child's Play, and he's way too young. I don't know. He's probably like 6. I'm such a bad dad. He's like 6 or something. and we watched the whole movie, and the credits are rolling, and he's like, as soon as it goes, it's like, nothing scares me, and I'm like, really? I was like, that didn't scare you? And he just busts out into tears, and he goes, it scared me. And I was like, oh no, I just got bossed around by a 6-year-old, and now I've traumatized him letting him watch this movie. But no, he's great. He's actually 16 now. He's a great kid.
Wow.
He's turned out well. I know. So I almost think that, like, I don't know. I like the fact that I was introduced to some of these movies early. I don't know. I guess I don't have any basis of like whether or not it helped or hindered me in any way, but
it's helped with the job, Chris. Look,
I think so. I think so. And he's real crafty when it comes to movies. Like he's on Letterboxd and he's catching up to me. I think I have like 3,000 movies or something that I've watched, and he's like over 2,000 now. And he's just chiming. He'll text me every night. If we're not together, like last night he was with me and we watched 65, and then okay. But if we're not together, like he'll text me what movies he's watching, and he'll tell me what he thinks of them afterwards. And he's just a regular old little movie critic now.
That's amazing. Nice. So you started him early on his the cinematic awakening.
Yeah, absolutely. He knows his stuff.
What age did he realize that films could be bad, though? This is one of my, like, do you know what I mean? What age did you work out films could be bad? Could be a better question for you.
I don't know what age he started realizing that. I'm not sure. That's a great question. I should ask him. I don't even know if I know that about myself. I don't know. When there's just movies that I liked, and then there's movies that I didn't like, and I have come to like the most, like the my baseline is do I want to rewatch it again? Like that's all I will say. There's always something about a movie I can admire, whether it's a certain performance or special effects or whatever. There's usually something that I can take away from it. But at the end of the day, it's like, am I okay never watching this again, or is it something I would like to rewatch in the future? And that's really, it's as simple as that for me.
Yeah.
If that was my baseline, I would like about 50 movies, because I never watch movies again. I just, one and done.
Well, and then there's, I guess that's true, because there's some movies like Schindler's List, for example. Like, that's a great movie. What a great movie. I never need to watch it ever again.
No, never.
No. It's brilliant. Like, I never need to watch Citizen Kane again.
Yeah.
I never really need to watch The Godfather Part 2 again. I've done it.
Yeah, Passion of the Christ. Like, once was enough.
That ticked it off.
Really well made. Let's never do this again.
How often do you watch The Dark Knight then?
I would guess I've seen The Dark Knight probably 25 times at this point. Yeah, a lot. I've seen it a lot.
It's one of those films that even if it's on TV and you're walking past and you just sit down, and then the next thing you know, you finished it and you're like, oh. But might as well watch the next one next.
Yeah, that and Terminator 2, they're both like that for me. RoboCop's another one, though. If we're sticking to sequels, I mean Terminator 2 and Dark Knight for sure are definitely my go-to sequels. They're my favorite.
How do you feel about the Joel Schumacher Batmans? While we're on Batmans and we're talking about good ones, I
think the Joe Schumacher would have really benefited from the idea that this is a separate universe, but we didn't really have that back in the day. So it was still connected to, I think if you were going in expecting Michael Keaton's Batman and that tone and the Tim Burton's aesthetic and everything, I think if there was like an audience awareness of like, this is a different thing, it probably would have been better. And I do look at it like that now, but at the time, it was supposed to be a sequel to Michael Keaton's Batman, but it's just got a different director and it's got a different Batman. But this is, for all practical purposes, this is the same guy. Yeah. So I hated him. I really I remember being so excited for Batman Forever and being like, what did I just watch? Like, I remember like feeling that way as like a, I don't know, 11-year-old kid at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was no, I don't love them. I don't love them very much. No.
No one does. It's okay.
When it comes to 2005 and they're redoing, they're like making more Batmans. And at this point, Nolan's done some pretty good films. Memento's pretty good. Bale's been all right. Were you excited at that point, or were you like, what kind of tone are we going to have? Or
I'm always excited when they're redoing something, especially when it doesn't end on a great note, right? If they're bringing it like Christian Bale, I could have seen 3 more movies with Christian Bale's Batman. So I'm also a Batman guy who like I wasn't super excited for Ben Affleck's Batman because I like Batman when he's the oddity, right? When he's like, he's the special thing. But when you start throwing in Superman and Wonder Woman and the Justice League, then for me, it starts to get a stretch because I'm like, well, Batman would be dead in like 4 seconds. So if Batman's truly just a normal dude who just has some cool gadgets, then he's dead. This doesn't work for me then. So I always prefer when Batman's sort of on his own.
Yeah.
So for that, so I wasn't super excited for the Ben Affleck thing, but I was really excited for the Robert Pattinson stuff because I was, once again, I was like, okay, so Batman is like, he's the anomaly in Gotham City. I prefer that.
Yeah.
And did you like the new Batman film?
I did like the new Batman film. I liked the tone of it. I liked. I thought Robert Pattinson did a good job. I wish that he was a little bit more Bruce Wayne-esque, but I think they're building to that. So I'm excited to see his version of like the dapper sort of Bruce Wayne and not the emo guy that we got. But I liked his Batman. I thought his Batman was really well done. So yeah, I'm excited to see where they go with it.
I think that's where Bale does really good in The Dark Knight. I really enjoy his performance as Bruce Wayne, probably a little bit more than Batman, to be honest.
I do too. I've always said I think Michael Keaton is the best Batman for me.
Yeah,
I mean, he really got he nailed the voice in a lower register that sort of like hits Batman, but it's not cartoony at all. It's hard to make fun of it. But Christian Bale really doing like he's essentially playing Patrick Bateman, right? I mean that's. His Bruce Wayne is like Patrick Bateman because it's a facade that he's putting on this really snarky, like snob kind of guy when he's not that, that he's not that guy at all. I think his Bruce Wayne is fantastic. I don't think anybody can touch Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne.
I've got a little question. So this is not attached to your worst ever sequel, even though I think it's going to answer that quiz question. But what is the most disappointing sequel? So it's not your worst sequel, but it's one you went into really hyped and you came out and just felt a little bit let down. So it's not a bad film. It doesn't have to be a bad film.
Definitely Dark Knight Rises.
I knew it was going to be your worst.
Yeah. That's the first one. That's the first one that pops into mind as far as just disappointing. It's got stuff about the movie that I really like. I think Tom Hardy's Bane is fantastic, especially when you consider he's following Heath Ledger. Like that's hard. That's hard for anybody to do. And I think that he did similarly a good job with taking a very original, like a swing at the character. But yeah, that movie, when I just think about like what could have been, it makes it a little sad for me.
Yeah, a lot of people are down on Bane, aren't they? And his funny voice, his Tom Hardy.
I don't
voice
think it's Bane's fault that movie kind of is a little bit of a train wreck. But it's not. It's when you like. I remember watching that movie, and I loved it when I first watched it. But it was one of those movies that, like, an hour or two later, as I started thinking about it, I was like, I don't know if I love this as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like I started thinking about like holes and things that didn't really make sense for me. And I just kind of, and things that I wish they would have done. Like there were like, I was always in the camp of like Harvey Dent didn't die. Like, especially when it shows, Maroni get dropped, from the same height.
Yeah.
I think I thought that was Nolan like purposefully setting up that like, there's a reason why like Harvey's not dead. I thought Harvey was still going to be alive, and the fact that they never brought him back, and it's just this like sheet of paper that's got this like the Bane's. I don't know. There's just a lot of like really convenient storytelling in Dark Knight Rises that I don't think I don't think really holds up.
Do you think there's a script out there somewhere where Heath Ledger was alive and they had it mapped out properly with maybe Harvey Dent or whatever?
I don't know about a full script, but I definitely think that there was. I think they knew where they were going. I think there was a whole other story in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, because a lot of times they don't start the script writing process until after the movie is a success, and Heath died before the movie even came out. So I don't think there's a full script, but I definitely think I think there was a sort of a, what's the word?
A treatment.
A treatment.
Yeah, I think there was. I definitely think they knew where they were going.
Yeah, to the build up to it, how excited were you for it? Were you buying into it all? Did you go and watch the prologue before whatever film it was? Probably Mission Impossible at that point.
I think it was Mission Impossible. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I didn't, but only because I'm somebody who likes to watch as little as possible before I go into the movie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I'm exactly the same. If I can avoid a trailer, I will.
I usually do. The most fun I've had at the theater has been going in blindly, not like going off a poster. Like that's my favorite thing to do, which is weird because I'm in the business of like talking about news about trailers and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But if I can avoid it, I try to avoid it. I'm definitely a big like, oh, I love this poster. Let's go check it out. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once is a good example of a movie that I didn't watch I went into it completely blind and it just blew me away. Like not knowing anything about it and then watching that without having any context for what it is.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I just love that movie.
I did that with Prometheus. I went into that like totally like.
Did you not even know that it was like an Alien prequel?
No,
Oh, that's awesome.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing about it. And then
like
halfway through, I'm like, holy shit, this is an Alien movie. And I think that's why I kind of like it. Like I know no one else does. It's just me on my own.
No. We're right there. I kind of
like it.
Yeah,
I'm on the opposite camp. I met a guy who was working at Pinewood at the time on the sets for Prometheus, and I was like, "Oh, it's not an Alien movie." He's like, "It's an Alien movie. I'll let you know now. It's an Alien movie." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "I've seen the Alien. Yeah, I've seen it on set." And that was before.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, well, that's cool." And then I watched the movie and I went, "Oh, that sucks." I wasn't a fan. Going back to your poster theory, do you think that's because we're from a generation of we didn't have the internet, we didn't have like easy accessible this like tidal wave of information coming at us? All we had going from is like a poster or a VHS cover or maybe a blurb.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. The only at the times, back in the 90s when I was a kid, it was like you saw trailers before a movie at the movie theater, or you might catch one on TV. You might catch a TV spot, or on the VHS. Before the movie would start. Like that's the only time you saw trailers. You couldn't just whip up YouTube and watch it whenever you want, or even like study it once you did see it. Like that wasn't really a thing. So I think that's I think that's definitely the case. And I don't know. And I've just had so many good experiences, like not because the trailers now, especially modern day trailers, they're so notorious for they give away the big parts of the movie in order to pull the audience in. And that's the most disappointing thing for me. Like for The Flash, like as a guy who just adores Michael Keaton's Batman, like literally every one of his big lines are in the trailers. Like all of his big moments, there was nothing in the movie that they held for the audience. Nothing.
Yeah.
And that's a huge disappointment as somebody who was like excited to see him back. All I got was a little bit more context of the story, but I mean, everything was in the trailers.
Yeah. So I don't know how this will work from The Dark Knight Rises, because if you watch the trailers and the material, it might give you more of a sense that it wasn't going to be the movie you thought it was going to be. So when, for the trailers and the prologue, we heard Bane do his Tom Hardy impression, the rah thing.
I like how it's Bane doing his Tom
I got it the wrong way
impression.
round. I was hoping I was going to notice. I can edit that. I'm the editor. It's fine. So I think we all knew going in that, well, when I say we all, I knew because there'd been all this hoo-ha about his voice and stuff. But did you not know anything about that? Did you just like, I'm staying away from it?
I'd heard the stories about how much everybody hated his voice because they couldn't understand him in the prologue when they released that. I'd heard that, but other than that, I don't remember for sure if I had seen a trailer leading up to it or not. I think that I had. I'm pretty sure I knew what I was going into when I saw Dark Knight Rises. And yeah, I don't remember, to be honest.
Was it a midnight screening you went to? Was it?
No, it wasn't actually. By the time 2012 rolled around, I was doing a I remember I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because I had stand-up shows that week. And so the first chance I got, it wasn't a midnight showing, but because I think I had a show that I was doing around the time that it was coming out. But the next morning, I remember I got tickets to the IMAX. So I went and saw it like 10 in the morning on a Thursday or something like that.
Nice.
Was it? Do you remember if it was a busy screening?
Yeah, it was busy. Yeah, I do remember that. It was busy.
Did people have fun in it? Did people enjoy it? Because I remember being my screening and the air went out.
There was also, I mean, there was the shooter thing happened too.
Oh shit!
You know, so the guy who, I don't remember his name, but the guy who shot up the theater in, I think it was Colorado, that mass murder thing happened, and during The Dark Knight Rises, and that gave the movie, seeing it in theater gave it a real eeriness. That was problematic. So I remember feeling uncomfortable at the time. I don't remember like a lot of details, but I do remember for like a year after that, especially like in The Dark Knight Rises, which I'm pretty sure I saw in theaters like at least twice. I remember all like feeling just weird about it.
Yeah, I can imagine that being an unpleasant experience.
Yeah.
We can't really relate to that in this country.
No, good for you. It's insane. Yeah. We get them daily now. It's becoming a part of everyday life, and it's horrible and horrifying. And I don't want to get political. So
I was about to say the worst in my cinemas is people talking behind me, or once someone took their shoes off and put their feet between the aisles, kind of thing. That was,
man, those were the days.
Yeah. No shoot up in that. So how often do you revisit The Dark Knight Rises? Is it something you've gone back to going?
Not often. I've seen it a couple times since in the years past, but it's definitely one of those movies that I'll watch Batman Begins and I'll watch The Dark Knight. I usually just skip on Dark Knight Rises. Honestly, lately, my interviews have blown up so much since like around 2020 is really when I got like started taking off and like interviewing a ton of people. I'm honestly so busy now that I don't get to revisit a lot of things that I love in general. I like, if it's not something I'm having to watch for work, a lot of times I don't get to see it. I mean, that's one reason why I haven't seen Indiana Jones yet. I mean, I used to be somebody who would be there on a midnight screening, but now if I'm not doing the junket for it, or if I'm not doing the interviews, then I and usually I've watched something like weeks before it comes out. And then by the time it comes out and everybody's excited and talking about it, I'm already like having to prep for the next things that are coming out. So I feel like mentally I've already moved on from it's this weird thing where I don't get to be excited with everybody in a lot of ways.
When it comes to a film like The Dark Knight Rises size, like that size of film, how early do like critics get to watch that? Like that, is that like you don't get to watch it at all? Or
it depends on if it's good or not.
Okay.
If the studio really believes in it, like a lot of times you'll get to see things like a month, sometimes 2 months in advance. If they don't, it might be like a week, maybe. They'll let you have it, and then you always can tell if a movie's going to be like good or bad based on like when the embargo is up, right? Where we can talk about it. Like if the embargo is like in the middle of the night, like the day before the movie comes out, or the day the movie's coming out, like you're gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be a dumpster fire. But if studios really believe that they've got a good movie on their hands, that embargo will be up, weeks before the movie comes out.
Do you think that backfired on The Flash though? Because I felt like everyone had seen The Flash before The Flash came out.
I definitely think it backfired, and I didn't like The Flash. I've been pretty forthcoming about the fact that I think that movie was not great. I definitely think that like when you've got a James Gunn like calling it like one of the greatest superhero films ever made, I mean, I think if you say something like that, you gotta I mean, it better be.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it was. I think in a lot of ways, I think it was just a lot of hype. I don't think it's a bad movie per se, but it's not one of the greatest superhero movies ever made.
Oh no, it's definitely not.
No.
And
especially, I gotta say, especially, and this is something I don't think they planned for, but especially post Spider-Verse, like having Across the Spider-Verse come out like 2 or 3 weeks beforehand really hurt them, because Across the Spider-Verse is incredible. I mean, it's so good, and it handles the multiverse so well that I think that to go from that, it is even Guardians Volume 3, like to go from Guardians Volume 3, Across the Spider-Verse, just 2 knockout punches, and I just think that I think the hype was too great for The Flash. I don't think it could live up to it.
Yeah.
So I went into The Flash sort of the opposite way around, going, oh God, this is going to be terrible. I don't really want to watch this. And came out going, oh, it's all right.
That's how I went into the Eternals. I ended up I don't hate the Eternals, because I was like, God, this movie's going to suck. And then I watched it and I was like, this is not too bad. So I think the lesson we can learn is that if we go into every movie thinking it's going to be straight garbage, you just let yourself get pleasantly surprised.
Is that where we went wrong with The Dark Knight Rises? Because we went in with like the highest of high hopes.
Probably. Oh, for sure. I think that definitely happened.
I mean, it was never going to, coming after The Dark Knight, it was an impossible task.
Not without Heath.
Yeah.
If Heath had been involved, I think that we probably would have got something that might have hit at that same level. But I think that knowing Heath wasn't involved, and the fact that like they had to sort of change course, I'll always be sad and wonder, like, what if, like, that would,
What is the bit of the film that really doesn't work for you, though? Can you put your finger on it?
In which movie?
The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, just the plot in general, I think, moves too fast. I think the fact that Bane breaks his, and again, I'm forgive me, I'm sort of paraphrasing. It's been a few years since I've seen it, but I think that breaking his back, and then the weird, and then they send him to the weird island or prison or whatever that Bane grows up in, and then
the hole.
He fixes his back on his own and he escapes, but then he's just right back in Gotham City. There's just, the plot leaves out some context, I think, that really hinders the movie in some ways. And like I said, and I already mentioned the Harvey Dent thing. That was another issue that I really think they really set up a lot of good stuff with Harvey Dent that I think sort of gets glossed over in Rises. Yeah, that I was disappointed by.
How about the Joseph Gordon-Levitt storyline? Robin.
That's weird too. It's okay, it's fine. It's like a little nod to him, but taking a character who doesn't really exist in the comics, and it's just, and the fact that he, like that whole Joseph Gordon, like that's sort of what I mean about some of the plot issues, is that like now you say that it's like making me remember things, but like when Joseph Gordon-Levitt comes in and he's like, I know you're Batman because I know what orphans look like, and I'm just like, what? That's how you know? Like that? It's just, there's some weird stuff in there that I don't.
And the Robin line at the end.
I was just gonna say the when he says his name's Robin at the end, you're like, oh, shut up.
Yeah. It doesn't work for me.
I do have to ask you about the ending. How do you think he's alive or dead? The whole Alfred.
I think he's alive. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he faked his death and wanted to sort of get away from the Batman thing, and he's done what he sets out to do. That's probably my favorite thing of Rises, is that he set out what he wanted to do with Batman Begins and create a symbol, right? That like, and so if John Blake is taking over the mantle of that, he's, they don't know that Batman's not still out there. You assume that he's taken up the mantle of Batman, and so it's going to keep going. And he's just like this crusader for Gotham City that's always out there lurking in the shadows, even though Bruce Wayne himself, it's almost like the Phantom, right? That's sort of what they built up like the Phantom to do, where it was like this generation of heroes, where it was like passed down father to son. And but criminals don't know that. They think it's just some immortal ghost that's out there, like, taking them down. So I that's probably my favorite, like, just full circle thing that Nolan did with Rises.
I still think he died. I can't be the only one that thinks he died.
I think you're the only one.
I think Alfred at the end is seeing what he wants to see.
You're just saying that Alfred's senile.
Yeah. No, I just think...
Is that what you're saying,
mate? Maybe I am. But I just think that's Alfred's perfect ending, that I don't know.
I mean, you know what? Maybe it's definitely open for interpretation.
But I'm incredibly stupid, and I take things on. What's shown in front of me. He's dead. Maybe, but then they do set that little bit like, is it the auto controls being disarmed, and then eventually
I look at it as like Bruce Wayne has faked his death. And that was his, I mean, Alfred's talked about that little cafe that he wants to retire and go to. And I think that was Bruce Wayne's way of just letting Alfred, if anybody else know, I'm okay and I'm living the life that I want to live now. And I think that was sort of his nod for Alfred. And I don't think he did it for anybody else. I think it was just for Alfred.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That's what I think too.
I'm sure the internet thinks that as well. I do got another little question for you, which is, is there been a franchise that, there's two ways of looking at this, that you liked at the beginning and then it got rubbish and then it came back to being liked, or you hated it at the beginning but you came around to liking it? You can, either one of those.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question. This is the franchise question, I would say, because there's more.
That's a tough question because I haven't really thought about it. But as far as I never hated it. I'll go in preface and say I've never hated this franchise, but I think that it has continuously gotten better. Is Mission Impossible? I think that that is the first one's great, but the first couple really they feel like 90s action movies.
Oh
right?
Yeah,
like they're dated. But Tom Cruise has just kept raising the bar on those, and those movies are insane. So that's probably the one that I would say that I didn't hate it, but it's definitely gotten better as it's gone along.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Is probably Fast and Furious for the other ones. I really like the earlier Fast and Furious movies, but as they have become more and more ridiculous, I've sort of I can enjoy them for what they are, but there is a part of me that misses the Fast and Furious movies being about actual street racing.
Yeah, I feel like that. I think the first Fast and Furious movie was Point Break with cars. Yeah, you can't get better. It's ace.
It's so good. Speaking of Point Break, what a great movie! Oh my god, I love Point Break.
Then Too Fast, Too Furious, not so good. And then I think Tokyo Drift is great.
Tokyo Drift
is a bit forgettable.
Yeah, I honestly, I really kind of checked out after Tokyo Drift. I've seen them, but it's like a one time, and then I'm I'm good. I don't need to rewatch it again, sort of thing.
And then 5, the whole world just goes crazy.
It just gets
crazy. Do you reckon when they revamp this franchise once Vin Diesel's, I don't know, done with it or whatever?
No, I don't think so. I think
do you not reckon they'll go back there, or they'll go Super Spy still?
I think they might have spin-offs.
Yeah.
Which obviously they already have with Hobbs and Shaw, but I think we might see some spin-offs without Vin Diesel. But I think Vin Diesel's the only reason why it's still going. I think that Vin Diesel's just so passionate about it that I think he is the soul of that franchise. And so I think when Vin Diesel's gone, I don't see them rebooting Fast and Furious. I just don't. I don't know who's going to jump aboard that's as passionate about it as Vin Diesel is.
Do you not reckon they'll go back to the beginning, just have street racing, and then slowly build up again to another ridiculous...
I think what will happen, will be like Dial of Destiny, and in 15 years' time when Vin Diesel's decrepit and old, he'll come back and for one last go.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a son or something that he's training to be a street racer, and we can maybe see it come full circle that way. But no, I don't see Fast and Furious movies being rebooted. I could be wrong. I mean, it's Hollywood, and everybody, they reboot everything eventually. But no, I don't see it happening without Vin.
What about the Mission Impossible ones without Tom Cruise?
I think that sort of the same thing applies. I think that he's just so integrated into that franchise. That I think the whole reason that it works is because of Tom.
Oh, so 100%.
I don't know. That's another one that I don't see you doing, at least not doing well without Tom. Now the movies are becoming even more notorious for what death-defying stunt is Tom going to do in this movie.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible movies are basically Tom Cruise going, right, I've got this cool idea of the way I'm going to try and kill myself. Let's build a movie around it.
It's a whole story built around some insane thing that Tom Cruise is going to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that without Tom, I don't think you've got a franchise on your hands.
There's no other actor willing to chuck themselves off something, because I remember, Ghost Protocol, when they brought in Jeremy Renner, there was rumours that they were going to try and hand over the franchise to him.
Well, I know they tried to do that with Jeremy Renner and Jason Bourne.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
Legacy.
Didn't go well. But I think that it's really hard to spin off these franchises to actors that aren't integral to it from the get-go, unless you just do a complete reboot. And I think that only works with like certain characters that we have had access to for 60, 70 years, like Batman or Spider-Man or those guys. I think that there's certain characters that have been around so long that I think they become like our version of Shakespeare, right? They're like our, like, every actor just wants to do their version of that character. But when a franchise is built from the ground up, like I know Mission Impossible was originally a spy show in the 60s, but nobody alive is remembering that. No, we're not going back and watching old episodes of Mission Impossible from the 60s.
No. A Mission Impossible, the TV show, is nothing like Mission Impossible now. It's like the first movie. It's like
espionage.
I think it's got to be a character that like audiences like they know instinctively. Like I think that's, in fact, I was having this conversation the other day about how I think where the Marvel messed up with Phase 4 was assuming that they could sort of do like in Spider-Man for Civil War. Like they introduced Spider-Man, no origin, he's just there, and we loved it. Everybody loved it. But you didn't have to show that origin again, right? Because we'd already seen it several times. We knew about it from the comic books. We knew about it from cartoons. It had just been, for the 50 or 60 years, it is just ingrained into society and our culture. But then I think they tried to do that through various movies in Phase 4 with these other characters like America Chavez or Riri Williams, or they tried to introduce these characters, these new characters, they're sprinkling them in everywhere without giving them a proper origin, and audiences don't care about them because we don't know them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we don't instinctively just know who these characters are. And so I think that they thought they could get away with that, and I just don't think audiences are here for it.
No. Do you think there's a way Marvel will improve again, or?
Yeah, but they have to go back to their original formula, right? They have to start doing one-off films that really get audiences used to who these characters are. I think Marvel did a brilliant thing with, especially they didn't have access to Spider-Man originally. They didn't have X-Men. They didn't have Fantastic Four. So they really took like their B players. I sort of liken it to like pro wrestling standards, where it's like they took their mid card and they did a brilliant job making them main eventers, right? They turned those guys into household names, where the Avengers are now just as big as your Batmans and your Spider-Mans and all that stuff. Like they're huge. But I think that then when those guys retired, right, you getting rid of Iron Man and Black Widow and these characters that you've built up and turned into household names. But now they're taking like their opening act, right? They're taking their guys that are like the characters that are, in comic books, 10, 15 years old, which is like, that's babies. Those are babies by comic book standards. Like most mainstream audiences have no clue who these characters are. And then they're trying to push them up to main event status. And it's just too big of a jump. You just can't, I just don't think they're buying it. And so I think you have to go back to the original formula. I think that if you want to build up a character that audiences haven't seen that origin over and over, like a Batman or a Spider-Man, you gotta give audiences something that they can sort of chew on, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Like we didn't know who any of them were, but James Gunn just handled that so. Just perfection, right? It's just so good, and we all love them now. And I think that's sort of the setup that you have to do. You have to introduce a new character via their own movie, and really do. I mean, you have to knock it out of the park. It has to be an excellent movie.
And that's what James Gunn's doing at DC, isn't it, now?
Mm-hmm. I think so, much. Yeah.
I feel that's...
Yeah, I was just saying then, like my son now, like Iron Man is like a main superhero to him, whereas to me, Iron Man was a guy who occasionally turned up in Spider-Man comics.
Yeah, same.
It wasn't like...
I have like boxes of Spider-Man comics, and I have like 3 or 4 Iron Man comics from my childhood. Same, but I was that way with all the Avengers. Like the Avengers were always like sort of backup characters to me in my childhood. That's how they came across.
They were backup characters, and then the reason they became Avengers is because Marvel went, "Oh, we've got all these backup characters. What if we put them all together? Maybe they'll become like a thing." So that's sort of how it happened, isn't it? It's like, brought it all together. But yeah, Spider-Man for me was always the big Marvel character.
Me too. And X-Men. I liked X-Men a lot. I was a Wolverine guy growing up. I loved me some Wolverine.
How do you feel about what they're doing over at Sony with the good bad guys, the bad guys of Spider-Man?
The worst. I hate it. I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm dreading having to watch that Kraven the Hunter movie.
Venom is fun because of Tom Hardy's performance.
Yeah, he goes to it.
He makes it fun, but the formula of here's this Spider-Man villain here is a new villain that's got the same powers as that person, but we're just going to make them a little more evil. So these guys are more like anti-heroes. It doesn't work for me. I don't like it. And we've done it. We did it there was that with Venom, twice in 2 movies they had that. And now they've done it with Morbius. There's a worse vampire. And now we're going to see it with Kraven, where it's like, yeah, he's bad, but there's a worse guy out here. Like, I'm over it. Like, I hate that formula.
Kraven's one of my favorite Spider-Man baddies, and I can't bring myself to watch this movie.
I just want, like, if you're gonna, I'm fine with making a movie about a villain, but just make him a villain. Just let him be a villain. Like, that's what I want. You don't have to make me root for this guy. Make me hate him. There's a lot of fun in that too. Like, I
want Kraven to be a mad Russian.
And Venom, I think Venom is a little bit like, he sort of transitions into a good guy in the comic book. So that's always, that's a little bit there. But these other guys they're trying to do it with, no, I don't. No. Don't give it to, I don't want it. Like, nobody's asking for it. I don't want it.
What was your dream sequel?
Dream sequel that we'll never get, and I hope we don't get it at this point, honestly. I'd rather it be a one and done. Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, you've changed.
Okay.
Did I say something else?
You said RoboCop.
You said RoboCop.
Yeah. RoboCop is.
Let's do both.
We could do both.
I would still take RoboCop, especially like a direct sequel that sort of like skips past 2 or 3 or whatever. And
do you not like 2?
Nah, it's okay, but 1 is just so good though. The problem with 2 is that 2, I don't think really lands the satire in the same way that the first one does. I mean, and Paul Verhoeven is, where 1, I think, like, has it's the grotesque prosthetics, and it's so good about it. I would say RoboCop is also like a near perfect like action movie, but I think that RoboCop 2 thought, well, let's just up the language, and let's up, it sort of falls into that sequel trap of like, we've got to do more without understanding what it was, what the components were about the first one that made it so brilliant.
Yeah.
It's like, let's make the baddie a kid.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
No, I mean, all the villains in RoboCop 1 are just so good. I mean, every one of them. I mean, it's the whole gang of them they're just fantastic. So I would like, if for somebody, I would love a director who understands that about RoboCop to really like tackle that, especially while Dr. Peter Weller is still around and with us.
Can we quickly talk about RoboCop 3? Because we watched that today. And that is fucking atrocious, by the way. That is...
I don't like RoboCop 3 at all.
It's so boring, and it has none of that...
I mean, he can fly, so I guess that's cool. But...
Oh, good. It's none of that fun.
I think that's the worst bit of it.
It is.
When he's like...
It's terrible.
Flying through the air like... Oh, God. Like a kite almost. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, but Big Trouble in Little China is for me like I love everything about that movie, and it is Kurt Russell's the coolest dude in it.
Yeah.
I love it so much, and I think that's a movie that John Carpenter does such a great job world building in that movie that you could have jumped in there and done anything. In fact, if you'd made that today, there's no way that it wouldn't be just a hit franchise. But now at this point, I don't want to reboot. I don't want them to remake it. I just like leave it alone. It's a perfect 80s movie. Oh yeah, I mean, as a grown up, I'm still a big John Carpenter fan. But I love John Carpenter. That man rarely does wrong in my eyes.
It's a great man. And Kurt Russell, what I like about that film, Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah. is that he's
yeah.
useless in it, pretty much. As in,
he's such a great action. He's so what a breath of fresh air when it comes to action heroes in that movie, because he gets shown up by everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still got the bravado. You know, he really that's one reason why I thought he was like perfect casting as Chris Pratt's dad, because I think Star-Lord's got a lot of Kurt Russell energy in Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. If I gave you a time machine, when would you want your Big Trouble in Little China sequel to be? What era?
Oh, well, Big Trouble in Little China, what was that? 86?
86.
Yeah. Give it to me in 89. Let's do it. Let's follow it right up. I don't know how you follow it up. I'm not saying that I even like can I don't know how, like, I mean, it does wrap everything up perfectly, but you know, but somehow Lopan returning, or the Three Storms returning, or some new Chinese black magic thing. I think you could have had a lot of fun with that. I think that even getting away from the Chinese black magic stuff, if you just follow what's Jack Burton up to, right? Where's the next place that he goes? I mean, he's a truck driver, so like, I think that could have been fun. I'd
could be
love
Big
to see
Trouble
that
somewhere else, couldn't it?
Exactly, big Trouble and wherever, but yeah, you could have had just a whole
Belgium.
host of Big Trouble movies.
We've got Little Venice in London.
Yeah,
it's a canal.
That's Big Trouble at the Eiffel Tower. I don't know, whatever. You could have done anything.
That'd be brilliant. How do you feel about these legacy sequels? Because we're now in this era that they're trying to drag out everything.
Yeah, I think like anything, if it's good, if you got a good story for it, I support it. I've seen good ones, and I've seen ones that I think are not so good. So it really depends. I don't want to say that I hate the idea of them, because like Top Gun Maverick, I think is better than Top Gun. But then you've got movies that really they just formulaically repeat the original, and and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So it's hard for me to say, but overall I like them. If they don't, like, I loved Cobra Kai, but now I'm to a point where it's like we can be done with Cobra Kai. Like we're like 4 or 5 seasons deep. Like we don't have to keep this cow's getting dry, like
yeah.
So that's I love some of them I don't. It's just but I think it just apply. Like I'm sort of that way with like superhero fatigue, right? It's like I don't think there's such a thing as I mean, there is a thing as superhero fatigue, but I think it's all based on the quality of the movie. I think that I've been burnt out on superheroes for a little while now, but then as soon as I saw Guardians 3, I loved it. Like no superhero fatigue for that. And same with Across the Spider-Verse. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie. There's no, and so that's how I feel about it. I just think that if you're going to make something, just make sure it's quality.
So if there was a new RoboCop and it was quality, you'll be happy. But
I would yes, I would love it if it's quality. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, because that RoboCop reboot was not good.
No, that even had there were things about it that I admired, but there was some cool stuff in it, but overall, it's pretty forgettable.
Was it the design of the suit? Did you hate that, or was that? Okay.
I did not like the black suit. I liked when he had the silver suit. Like he has the silver suit, and I thought that was cool. But then they decided to like make it like more Batman-esque, and I didn't really care for that. But I think there's certain elements about. I think what I didn't like about that RoboCop was they tried to make it PG-13. I think there are elements of like if you're gonna. You have to stay true to what fans of the original really love. And there are certain elements like, here's the things that you can change. It's like the Spider-Verse talking about canon events, right? It's like, here's the elements that you have to keep. Here's the elements you can sort of tinker with a little bit. And the fact that they like tried to make it PG-13 was like, it was like trying to take Child's Play and make that into a PG-13. I was like, nah, that's okay. No. I don't need this.
Give me 500 exploding blood packs and
no, if you don't have somebody blowing RoboCop's hand off with a shotgun, not interested.
I think people forget how violent RoboCop is now.
They really do. And what's funny is that I grew up on that, like the made-for-TV version of that movie. Like my dad had like filmed it on TV or something on a VHS. So I always watch it with like commercials and stuff in between, and it's like heavily edited. So I didn't see the unedited director's cut until I was like, I don't know, I was probably like 21 or 22. And when I watched it, I was like, this is amazing. This is the best movie I've ever seen.
Oh.
I had no idea that it was so violent. But yeah, RoboCop. Yeah, I mean, RoboCop's violent. I mean, it was almost like NC-17. I mean, like that's how gory that movie is.
Do you think they can make it fit like that now? Like, could they?
I mean, yeah, you can make it.
It could.
Yeah,
it just wouldn't make a fortune.
You can make it. You just have to accept the fact that like this is a movie that's gonna have a limited audience. But also, there was a time when we were making, companies were making money off of, DVD and Blu-ray sales and things like that. But now, there's so much physical media that's not even being made anymore.
Or they're just deleting it now.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They're putting it up on the streaming sites. And then as soon as it doesn't get an audience in 30 days, they just wipe it away, so they don't pay residuals. So crazy times we're living in. And which is why, writers are on strike. It's why the actors are probably about to be on strike. And, we got a lot of work to do to get Hollywood back up and running properly.
It's tough doing a movie podcast.
Yeah.
Those were Chris Killian's Unequal Sequels. Can you tell that he likes comic books a bit?
He's brilliant, isn't it? Isn't it weird the day we speak to him, in the evening, he's going to go and watch Terminator 2 Judgment Day on cinema.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's like when worlds collide and it's all meant to be, and it was just...
Absolutely. And it's really nice to get our second American guest on. So, yeah, all the way from Nashville.
All the way from Nashville.
That's pretty impressive, man.
I know that's in America.
That's global reach.
Yeah. Thank you for letting us talk to you and giving us your time. You're a very busy man, and the man's been working very hard recently. Just before the writers' strike, he had to get a lot in before it all went dark.
Talking of dark, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
What? Sorry, what a link, Rich. I don't think you get enough.
It's that radio training coming in there, mate.
Oh,
That's
God.
what it is.
Anyway, yes, go on.
So, yeah, best sequel, Dark Knight. Worst sequel, Dark Knight Rises.
That was all right.
Absolutely.
Not only was it his worst sequel, it was disappointing and worse. It was one of them when they combine it and they just can't split it. So we just let's roll with it.
Let's just go with it. It's fine.
He hates it, and that's fine, and the disappointment's all there. But is this the first Dark Knight this season on season 5? I believe it is.
It's the first Dark Knight on season 5. Yeah,
see, once a season,
guaranteed. I think maybe season 3 was Dark Knight 3, but every other season we've had the Dark Knight. Yeah,
it's definitely up there. I think it is now. Maybe the most picked. Rich is checking our spreadsheet.
We had it twice in season 1, didn't we?
Wow.
So Sean Walsh and Lewis Arnold in season 1. And then we had it again in season 2. Emily Murray picked it in season 2. Then season 3 didn't get a Dark Knight.
Wow.
So, but then we did back in season 4, Jamal Ford Robinson, he picked it for his best sequel. And then back, obviously, season 5, Chris Killian. So he's in some really good company there.
So 4 picks now for that. Is that the most? Can you tell me?
Oh, it's 5 picks.
5 picks?
5 picks.
Oh, yes, because 2 in the first.
Yeah, I think it is the most. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So.
Well, we'll hand a trophy to Chris Nolan or something at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do in this kind of thing, but congratulations, Chris. We won't mention that you also Chris Nolan's other sequel was the worst one. We won't tell him that when we meet him.
And then RoboCop.
It kind of two, wasn't it? It was RoboCop and Big Trouble in Little China, which he surprised us with at the same point.
Yeah, which is both very good choices.
Also, when talking about it, it also sounds like he wouldn't want a dream sequel, either of them, and he would just like to have them as they are. So,
I kind of
what a ride!
That. Like, I sort of understand that. I'm kind of. I know I do a sequel podcast, and so this is not the right thing to say, but I think of all my favourite movies, I can't think of any that I want a sequel for.
I can think of one, but we can't talk about it until next week.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
is one. Tune in next week to find out what that is.
Yeah. Go check out Chris on comicbook.com. He's on Twitter. He's on Instagram, TikTok. Very funny man. Brilliant interviewer. asks a lot about sequels, and so I really follow him for that. He gets the big scoops. Just got the big scoop from Gal Gadot that she is going to do a Wonder Woman 3, apparently. No one else knew. I'm not sure James Gunn knows either, but it's happening.
Well, he knows now because we know he listens. So,
yeah, he does.
He knows. And yeah, talking of like Twitter and TikTok and all that sort of stuff, whilst you're over there checking out Chris's stuff, you can check out our stuff too, because we're on all the social medias. We are at Unequal Sequel on Twitter, or whatever the hell that's called now. We're on Threads, we're on Instagram, and we're on Letterboxd, and we're on TikTok. Who knew that was a thing? But there we are. We're on TikTok as well. And whilst you're on social media checking us out, if you've just joined us because you're a big fan of Chris's, maybe you're new to the podcast, you joined us from comicbook.com, then go back and listen to all our other episodes. They are brilliant. See if you can find our other American guest, who joined us from over in the States. Go back, give them all a listen, hit the little subscribe button, hit the auto download button, and we'll drop into your popular choice every single week. If you really, really love us, you want more stuff from us, get yourself onto anotherslice.com/unequal sequel, where you can pay $2.99, just $2.99 a month for our subscription service. You'll get a sequel to every interview episode, which means even more Chris, and you'll also get Box Set Mentality and Disenfranchised, 2 extra podcasts from us, as well as extra reviews, trailer breakdowns, all sorts of things that we should be doing on there. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, whilst you're there, if you want to send us an email, we are unequalsequel@hotmail.com. Let us know what you thought of Chris's choices. We'll read out everything you say in our end of month roundup special,
which will be this week coming.
Oh yeah. So get it in quick.
We might have already recorded it, but we'll read it on the next month if so. So that's how it works. Well done again, Rich. Brilliant job. Well done. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you to Chris for being on the podcast. It took a while for us to sync up because, like I said, he's a busy man, and he gave us his time, and we really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And also, like, time differences are challenging as well.
Oh, it was difficult, but we found a moment and we smashed it. And it's a great interview. I've got nothing else to say. I feel like I'm rambling, so I'm just going to stop and just say bye. And then the big man's going to say bye.
Bye!
And then I'm going to say the bit that I always say, which is see you next week, the sequel to this week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Lovely. Can't believe we've only got one more episode left.
One more big episode next week.
Oh, mate.
Episode 12.
And then season 6 is already looking juicy. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, let's get that going. Get that cooking.